Captain Elias Rourke stared out of the viewport of the sleek human starship Odyssey. Below, the planet Thixian Prime shimmered like a jewel in the dark void of space. Its oceans glowed faintly under the twin suns, and its cities, shaped like giant crystals, reflected the light with a soft blue glow. Humans rarely traveled this far now. Most civilizations thought humans were extinct, their influence erased from galactic memory. But here he was carrying a gift, a symbol of Earth's long-forgotten role in interstellar history. Elias adjusted his uniform and took a deep breath. Ambassadors rarely faced planets as beautiful and dangerous as Thixian Prime. Alien customs were complicated, and Queen Zilara, the ruler of this planet, was known for her intelligence and unflinching judgment. The gift in his hands, a small human artifact, might be the only reason they would even consider listening to him. The Odyssey descended slowly through the atmosphere. Below, massive bioluminescent trees swayed, their leaves pulsing gently like living lanterns. Elias had studied the planet's culture in depth. The Thixians valued history, knowledge, and artistry above all else. Unlike most civilizations, they did not judge power by firepower, but by intellect and wisdom. To gain their trust, Elias would have to prove humans were more than just a dying species of weak, forgotten fighters. The landing was smooth. The hangar opened like a flower, revealing a courtyard filled with Thixian guards. They were tall, lean, with iridescent skin that changed color slightly with emotion. Their eyes, large and reflective, studied him carefully. There was a quiet intelligence in their posture, a sense of confidence that humans rarely saw anymore. Elias stepped forward, the gift clutched carefully in his hands. He had spent weeks preparing, ensuring every detail was perfect. It was a small mechanical globe, handcrafted from earth metals and engraved with constellations known only to early humans. To the untrained eye, it might seem like a simple ornament, but the Thixians, with their obsession for history and knowledge, would recognize its meaning immediately. It was a relic of humanity's golden age of space exploration, a time when humans had traveled to the stars as pioneers, mediators, and peacekeepers. A figure approached from the shadows, a Thixian with flowing robes of deep violet and gold trim. Elias knew this must be a royal envoy. The creature's skin shimmered faintly in the dim light, and its eyes, dark and gleaming, fixed on him with unblinking intensity. "Captain Rourke," it said in a melodic tone, voice like wind through crystal. "You are the human ambassador, come forward." Elias bowed slightly, a gesture he had learned was respectful across most alien cultures. "I am honored to be here," he said, his voice steady. "I bring a gift from Earth." The envoy studied him for a moment, then gestured. "Follow me." They walked through a series of corridors carved from a single massive crystal. The walls refracted light in strange patterns, and the air was filled with the soft hum of alien machinery. Elias noticed murals along the walls depicting humans he did not recognize. Figures standing among aliens, teaching, mediating disputes, guiding fleets. The captions were in the alien language, but he could tell that humans had once been important here. Long ago, perhaps. The corridors opened into a massive hall. At its center sat Queen Zilara, elevated on a throne carved from pure crystal, her form glowing faintly. She was taller than any human, her skin shimmering like molten silver, and her eyes reflected stars. Around her were advisors and scholars, their attention fixed on the small human before them. Elias approached, bowing again. "Your Majesty, I bring this gift from Earth, a symbol of respect and remembrance." He extended the small globe carefully. For a long moment the room was silent. Then Zilara's eyes widened. The shimmer of her skin deepened as she reached forward, delicate fingers brushing the artifact. You must be the last human who knows Thix," she said, her voice, low, almost a whisper. The words echoed through the hall, reverberating like a chord of long-forgotten music. Elias froze for a moment, stunned. "Thix?" he asked. "Yes," she said, her voice growing stronger. "The knowledge, The protocol. It was thought, lost, erased from memory, yet you hold it intact, like a thread from a time before the galaxy forgot humans. A murmur ran through the hall. Scholars leaned forward, whispering among themselves. Other humans had been recorded in history, but none had retained the ancient knowledge of Thix. Humans who once had a special role, guiding civilizations and mediating wars. The memory had faded over millennia, and the galaxy had assumed humans no longer mattered. Elias felt a mixture of pride and fear. He had studied the ancient archives, but never imagined this moment. "I do not know why I have it, Your Majesty," he said. "Perhaps it is instinct, or memory passed down. I only know it must be protected." Scilara studied him for a long moment, her gaze piercing. "You understand its value, then, and the danger it brings?" Elias nodded. "I understand, and I am willing to do whatever is necessary to ensure it does not fall into the wrong hands." The Queen's advisors whispered urgently. One of them, an older scholar with crystalline eyes, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, humans are weak. They cannot defend themselves against those who would steal Thix. How can we trust this one?" Xylara's eyes narrowed. "It is not weakness, but understanding that matters. Watch him closely." The Queen rose gracefully, moving closer to Elias. "Tell me, human," she said, her voice echoing in the crystal hall. "What do you know of the ancient agreements, the ones that once kept peace among stars?" Elias took a deep breath. "I know that humans were once trusted mediators, that we traveled between civilizations not to conquer but to guide. That Thix was the protocol that ensured balance, using logic, empathy, and foresight together." Xylara's eyes glimmered with a mixture of shock and awe. "Few remember it, and fewer still can execute it." A sudden alarm rang through the hall, a signal from outside. Aliens moved quickly, silent but precise, forming protective barriers. Elias tensed, unsure what threat had arrived, but the Queen waved them away. "It is nothing," she said, "but be aware, not all here trust humans, even one like you." Elias realized the weight of the moment. He was alone in a hall filled with beings far older and more experienced than himself. Yet he felt a spark of human confidence, the quiet fire of a species that survived and thrived against impossible odds. This was what made humans special. Not strength, not speed, but the mind and courage. Xylara returned to her throne. "You will dine with us," she said, "and tomorrow you will begin the lessons of Thix. You will see how little the galaxy remembers, and how much it still needs you." Elias bowed again, heart racing. The weight of history pressed on him. But there was excitement too. To be the last keeper of Thix was not just an honor, it was a responsibility. One human might not seem like much in a galaxy of billions, but sometimes a single mind could shape the course of stars. As the hall emptied and preparations for the evening meal began, Elias glanced at the small globe in his hands. Its metal surface reflected the light of Thixian Prime, glowing faintly as if alive. He smiled to himself. This was more than a gift. It was a key, and he intended to use it wisely. The stars outside the hall seemed to shine brighter that night. Somewhere in the galaxy, humans had been forgotten, but here on Thixian Prime a human had returned, and maybe, just maybe, the galaxy would remember again. The first light of Thixian Prime's twin suns filtered through the crystal windows of the royal chamber. Captain Elias Rourke sat quietly, his mind racing. Last night's revelation had left him stunned. Queen Xylara had called him the last human who knew Thix, a secret thought lost across the galaxy. He touched the small globe he had presented the Queen. Its metal surface felt warm under his fingers, almost alive. Humans had crafted it centuries ago, when Earth's explorers first reached other stars. It was not just a gift, it was a symbol, a link to a time when humans were remembered as thinkers, peacemakers, and mediators. Now, somehow Elias held the knowledge that connected the past to the present. The chamber doors opened, and two Thixian scholars entered, They moved with fluid grace, their eyes shimmering like starlight. One of them, a female with robes of deep emerald, spoke first. "Captain Rourke, Queen Zilara has requested your presence in the council hall. There is much to discuss regarding Thix." Elias nodded and followed them through corridors of gleaming crystal. The walls seemed alive, refracting light in complex patterns that shifted as they moved. He noticed symbols etched into the surfaces, old Thixian writings combined with human script. A strange sense of familiarity washed over him. The humans, in the murals long forgotten, the whispers of history. It felt as though the planet itself remembered. The council hall was massive. Tall spires of crystal stretched upward, catching the light in 1,000 colors. Around a circular table sat scholars, advisors, and generals, all alien. Their eyes followed him, some with curiosity, others with suspicion. Queen Zilara sat at the center, her presence commanding. Her silver skin shimmered in the sunlight, her eyes reflecting galaxies. She gestured for him to approach. "Captain Rourke," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You have presented the artifact. Now I wish to know, what do you understand of Thix?" Elias took a deep breath. He had studied Thix from ancient archives, old transmissions, and forbidden texts. "Your Majesty, I know Thix is a system of guidance, not control," he said. "It was created by humans to maintain balance, to mediate disputes, and to ensure civilizations could cooperate rather than destroy one another. It relies on logic, empathy, and foresight, all together." A murmur ran through the council. One scholar leaned forward, her voice sharp. "Humans are extinct, almost forgotten. How could one retain such knowledge?" Elias met her gaze steadily. "Some knowledge does not fade so easily. Thix was built into the mind of its keepers. It is instinct, reason, and understanding combined, and sometimes it survives where history fails." The Queen's eyes glimmered. "You speak well. But knowledge alone is not enough. You must demonstrate understanding. Thix is more than theory, it is practice, and many wish to control it, not respect it." Elias nodded. "I understand, and I am prepared." She motioned toward a holographic display at the center of the table. It unfolded into a three-dimensional map of Thixian Prime and the surrounding systems. Lines connected planets, trade routes, and conflict zones. Red markers blinked in certain regions, factions at odds, disputes unresolved, tensions rising. "This is the current state of the galaxy," Zilara said. "Most civilizations have forgotten humanity's role. They rely only on power, force, and intimidation. Yet balance is fragile. One misstep and war could spread across stars. Thix, if correctly applied, could prevent this." Elias studied the map. "These conflicts, they are similar to disputes humans once mediated. Trade disagreements, territorial claims, cultural misunderstandings. If Thix were applied, they could be resolved peacefully." A general, tall and imposing, spoke. "Peace is a dream. Logic alone does not prevent war. Strength dictates survival." Elias leaned forward. "Strength alone may win battles, but it does not secure lasting peace. Thix relies on understanding the motives, fears, and desires of others. Humans once used it not because we were strong, but because we understood the balance of minds." Zilara nodded. "And few possess that understanding now. That is why you are here, human, to remind the galaxy of what it has lost." The council murmured, some in admiration, others in doubt. One advisor, an elder with crystalline eyes, raised a question that cut through the tension. "And what of those who would misuse Thix? Knowledge can guide, but it can also destroy." Elias considered carefully. "That is true. But knowledge in the wrong hands is not Thix. Thix requires judgment, compassion, and restraint. I am here, not just to share knowledge, but to ensure it is applied wisely. That is the human edge." A younger scholar whispered to her companion. "He speaks with courage and clarity. Perhaps humans were underestimated." Zilara stood, her presence filling the room. "Captain Rourke, I believe you are capable, But to prove it, you must learn our ways, and we must learn yours. You will accompany me to the archives of Thixian Prime. There, the ancient records lie, and you will demonstrate whether one human mind can still hold the wisdom of ages. Elias felt a thrill of anticipation. The archives were a place few outsiders ever saw. They contained knowledge accumulated over millennia, safeguarded by the Queen and her most trusted scholars. And now, a human would enter and perhaps awaken. They moved through labyrinthine corridors deeper and deeper into the Crystal Palace. The air grew cooler, tinged with faint energy hums that Elias could feel in his chest. At last, they arrived at massive doors of polished crystal. Etched across them were symbols of balance, harmony, and vigilance. The core tenets of Thix. Lara placed her hand on the doors. This is where history waits, but it will test you. Thix is not given freely. You must prove your mind is capable, your heart steady. The doors slid open, revealing an enormous hall filled with holographic projections, floating texts, and ancient artifacts. Elias's eyes widened. He saw human writings intertwined with alien knowledge, treaties, star maps, and devices designed to predict conflict outcomes. He realized the enormity of what he had entered. Thix was not a single method. It was a philosophy, a library of strategies, and a guide to understanding the universe itself. A scholar stepped forward, guiding him to a holographic interface. Captain Rourke, demonstrate your understanding. Identify the imbalances in these systems and propose solutions. Elias studied the projections carefully. He noticed patterns that alien scholars had overlooked. Trade disputes hidden under diplomatic facades, planetary tensions masked by cultural differences. Using simple logic, human intuition, and empathy, he began to map solutions. Hours passed, and the council watched silently. Slowly, red markers on the holographic map shifted to green. Conflicts resolved not by force, but by understanding and compromise. The room filled with whispers of astonishment. Lara observed him closely. "Remarkable," she said quietly. "You see what others cannot." Humans were more than mediators. They were visionaries, connecting the minds of civilizations. But not all were impressed. A faction of generals and advisors exchanged worried glances. "If one human can do this," one muttered, "imagine what a human fleet could accomplish. Imagine the chaos they could create." Elias felt the weight of suspicion but pressed on. "Thix is not about domination," he said firmly. "It is about understanding, cooperation, not control, and it works only if applied with judgment." Lara smiled faintly. "You understand, human, but there are those who will try to steal this knowledge. Not all aliens respect wisdom over power." A sudden alert sounded from the palace perimeter. Defense drones activated, scanning for intruders. Elias glanced at the globe in his hands. Its faint glow pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. He realized that the galaxy remembered humans not just as thinkers, but as potential threats and potential saviors. The Queen stepped closer. "You will need to be cautious, Captain Rourke. Others will come seeking Thix, and you will be the one to show the galaxy that one human mind still matters." Elias nodded. The challenge was immense. The galaxy had forgotten humanity, but the memory of Thix lingered, and he held the key. As the sun dipped behind Thixian Prime's twin horizons, Elias studied the map once more. Red markers blinked faintly in distant systems, tensions rising. He clenched his fist. One human, one mind, one choice. It might not seem like much, but humans had always thrived when the odds were impossible. And perhaps, just perhaps, the galaxy had forgotten what humans were capable of. Outside the Crystal Palace, shadows moved. Aliens who doubted him were already whispering, planning. But Elias was ready. He understood the secrets of Thix. He knew the human mind could see paths that no alien could. And tonight, the last human who knew Thix would begin to remind the galaxy of its lost balance. The stars above Thixian Prime glimmered like a million eyes watching. waiting for what humanity would do next. The next morning, Captain Elias Rourke awoke to the soft glow of Thixian Prime's twin suns. Light filtered through the crystal walls of his quarters, painting shifting patterns across the floor. Today was no ordinary day. The Queen had promised him lessons in the archives, but what that truly meant remained a mystery. A knock at the door startled him. A young Thixian scholar entered, eyes bright with curiosity. "Captain Rourke," she said, her voice melodic. "The Queen awaits. There are challenges you must face before she can trust you fully." Elias stood and nodded. "I am ready." The scholar led him through twisting corridors, deeper into the palace. The air grew cooler, tinged with energy, humming faintly against his chest. At last they arrived at a large chamber. The walls shimmered with light, reflecting the intricate crystal patterns within. In the center stood a holographic platform, pulsing with alien symbols. Queen Xylara's voice echoed softly in the hall. "Captain Rourke, to understand the galaxy, you must first demonstrate the human mind. You will face the test of humanity. It will measure logic, creativity, and empathy. All three must be in balance." Elias stepped forward. "I understand. Your Majesty." The first projection appeared. A holographic model of a distant planet flickered to life. Red markers dotted the surface. "A planet on the edge of war," the Queen said. "You must analyze the situation and propose a resolution that prevents conflict without force." Elias studied the display carefully. Trade routes had been blocked, water rights disputed, and factions preparing for battle. Alien advisors murmured, among themselves certain that no human could solve it. He leaned closer, tracing paths with his fingers. "The conflict isn't about resources," he said slowly. "It's about trust. The leaders fear betrayal. If we provide guarantees and a shared monitoring system, they will cooperate." The projection shifted, simulating his plan. Red markers turned yellow, then green. Alien scholars gasped. One whispered, "No one has ever resolved it without a threat of force." Elias felt a spark of pride, but he knew this was only the first challenge. The next appeared, a complex puzzle, a holographic structure twisting in impossible dimensions. The Queen's voice echoed, "A riddle of strategy. You must find the correct alignment to stabilize energy flows across multiple star systems." Elias frowned, studying the puzzle. Alien logic relied heavily on rigid rules, but humans excelled at flexible thinking, improvisation, and seeing patterns others could not. Slowly, he rotated the structure in his mind, predicting how the flows would interact. After a tense moment, he adjusted the connections. The puzzle aligned. Energy stabilized. The holographic structure hummed with approval. Murmurs filled the hall. Aliens leaned forward, eyes wide. "Impressive," Xylara said. "You see connections where others see only separation." But the test was far from over. The final projection appeared, a moral dilemma. A colony faced famine due to natural disasters. Two neighboring planets could help, but each feared the other would exploit the situation. One solution would save lives immediately, but create dependency. Another would force the colonies to cooperate for long-term stability but risk initial deaths. Elias considered carefully. Humans often relied on both reason and empathy. He spoke aloud, addressing the room. "We cannot ignore the immediate suffering, but we must also consider the future. A phased aid program can feed the colonies while teaching them self-sufficiency. Both immediate relief and long-term stability are achieved. Cooperation becomes natural." The hall fell silent. The Queen's gaze softened. "You understand. You weigh consequences, not just actions. That is why humans were remembered as mediators, even when the galaxy forgot them." Elias felt a flicker of hope. For centuries, humans had been underestimated, thought extinct, or irrelevant. Yet here, in a hall filled with the most intelligent beings in the galaxy, one human mind had achieved what no alien could. Suddenly, alarms sounded. Defense drones activated outside the chamber. A group of aliens, unidentified, Intruders attempted to infiltrate the palace. Elias felt the tension spike. He was alone, surrounded by scholars and advisors, many of whom still doubted humans. "Do not worry," he said, more to himself than anyone else. "This is what humans do." He moved to the holographic platform. Using the knowledge of Thix, he predicted the intruders' paths, calculated weak points in the defense system, and coordinated the palace drones. The intruders were funneled into containment fields with precision, without a single casualty. Silara's eyes widened. "You applied Thix in real time and protected us all." One of the generals, a tall figure with shimmering silver skin, finally spoke. I did not expect this. Humans, your ingenuity surpasses our logic systems. You act, and we could never anticipate." Elias smiled faintly. "Logic is important, but humans rely on creativity, intuition, and understanding emotions. That is what allows us to see solutions others miss." The Queen stepped forward, her presence radiating authority. "Captain Rourke, you have passed the test of humanity. You understand balance, empathy, and strategy. You have demonstrated what humans once were and what they can be again." But even as she spoke, Elias felt a shadow of unease. Some in the council still whispered, their eyes filled with suspicion. Not everyone welcomed a human with the knowledge of Thix. After the test, Silara led him to a private chamber. "Captain, you must understand something. Knowledge alone is dangerous. There are factions in this galaxy who would kill to obtain Thix. They fear humans because we were never predictable. They will try to exploit you, manipulate you, or remove you entirely." Elias nodded. "I expected that. But I also know that humans survive. We adapt. We find paths others cannot." The Queen handed him a small device, a communicator linked to the palace network. "Use this wisely. Trusted allies only. You may need to act swiftly. Thix is more than history. It is survival." Elias felt the weight of responsibility settle on him. One human mind, a small artifact, a galaxy of intrigue and potential conflict. Yet he also felt a quiet thrill. This was what humans were built for. Challenges that seemed impossible, dangers others feared, and choices that required both heart and mind. The next few days were a whirlwind. Elias studied the archives, learning forgotten strategies of diplomacy, trade, and cooperation. He trained with scholars in simulation chambers, refining his application of Thix. Each time he amazed the aliens, solving problems with creative solutions, balancing risk and reward in ways no alien system could predict. Yet not all was friendly. Certain advisors observed him closely, whispering behind closed doors. Elias could sense their suspicion. Some saw humans as unpredictable, dangerous, and perhaps a threat to their power. He knew that if he misstepped, the galaxy's fragile balance could tip into chaos. One evening, while reviewing the holographic star maps, Elias noticed something unusual. A fleet of unknown ships, not recorded in any official logs, was approaching Thixian Prime. Their formation was strange, irregular, almost chaotic. Yet he could sense intent. These were not diplomats. They were hunters. He informed the Queen immediately. "Your Majesty, there's a fleet approaching. They are not here for diplomacy. I believe they are after Thix." Silara's expression darkened. "I feared this. The galaxy still has those who wish to exploit knowledge they cannot understand. They will come, and they will challenge you." Elias clenched his fists. "Then they will see what humans can do." The Queen nodded. "You have learned the theory. Now you will face the practice. But remember, human, cunning alone is not enough. Thix requires understanding, patience, and balance. One mistake, and lives will be lost." Elias spent the night preparing. Using the archives, he predicted the fleet's likely paths, analyzed their weaknesses, and devised strategies that combined deception, negotiation, and defense. Unlike aliens who relied purely on force, Elias relied on adaptability and creativity. the unpredictable human edge. By morning, the fleet was visible in the skies above Thixian Prime. Red dots against the light of the twin suns. Alien sensors were confused, unable to predict his strategy. Elias took command of the palace defenses, coordinating drones, shields, and communication channels. As the intruders descended, Elias implemented a plan humans had perfected over millennia. Outthinking the enemy before fighting, drones created false signals. Simulations projected fake targets, and the intruders' formation began to collapse. They had expected force. They did not expect strategy. Scylla watched silently, impressed. "You act as humans once did," she whispered. Not through sheer strength, but through mind and foresight. By midday, the fleet had retreated, confused and demoralized. Not a single Thixian ship was lost. The council erupted in astonishment. Aliens who had doubted him now saw humans in a new light. Not extinct, not weak, but uniquely capable. Elias breathed deeply, holding the small globe in his hands. Thix was more than knowledge. It was a test of character, intuition, and courage. And today the galaxy had glimpsed the human edge once more. The Queen approached, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You have passed not just the test of strategy, but the test of humanity. But remember, this is only the beginning. Others will come. The galaxy has not forgotten you, but it has not forgiven you either." Elias smiled faintly. "Then let them try. Humans always find a way." As the twin suns set over Thixian Prime, casting long shadows across the crystal cities, Elias felt the truth of it. One human mind. Captain Elias Rourke stood on the balcony of the Crystal Palace, overlooking the glowing city of Thixian Prime. The twin suns had risen, painting the towers in brilliant shades of blue and gold. Despite the beauty, Elias knew the galaxy was watching, waiting for any sign of weakness. The fleet that had approached yesterday was only the beginning. Others would come, others who wanted Thix, others who feared humans. Queen Zylara approached, her silver skin shimmering in the sunlight. "Captain," she said, her voice calm but firm, "you have proven yourself in thought and strategy, but now you must act among those who do not trust humans. Some factions see your presence as a threat. They may try to manipulate, deceive, or even attack you. Are you ready?" Elias nodded. "I expected no less. Humans thrive when the odds seem impossible. If they come to challenge, they will see the human edge in action." The first council meeting of the day was tense. Alien generals and scholars filled the circular hall, their gazes fixed on the small human at the center. Whispers rippled across the room as he entered. He had proven himself in tests, yes, but now he faced the true politics of Thixian Prime. A general with metallic blue skin spoke first. "Captain Rourke, we respect your abilities, but the galaxy does not trust humans. Even now, fleets approach Thixian Prime with unknown intentions. How can we rely on you?" Elias met the general's eyes steadily. "You can rely on humans, not because we are predictable, but because we are adaptable. I do not promise you perfection, but I promise solutions where others see only problems. That is what humans bring. Insight, improvisation, and the courage to act when others hesitate." A murmur ran through the council. Some nodded in approval. Others remained suspicious. It was clear that diplomacy would not be enough. Actions would speak louder than words. As the meeting continued, Zylara interrupted. "Captain, we have received intelligence. A faction from the northern systems, the Varrock, is approaching with warships. They demand the Thix protocols or they will attack. You must negotiate, and if that fails, you must defend our planet." Elias felt a thrill of anticipation. This was what humans were made for. Impossible situations, choices that demanded strategy, courage, and ingenuity. "I understand, Your Majesty. I will prepare a plan." Back in the strategy chamber, Elias analyzed the Varrock fleet. They were numerous, heavily armed, and confident. Most alien commanders would have relied on brute force, forming a defensive line, preparing weapons. But Elias thought differently. He studied their formation, their likely strategies, and the limitations of their ships. Then he devised a plan combining diplomacy, deception, and innovation. He called the council together. We cannot defeat them by strength alone, but we can outthink them. First, we will project false signals of our fleet strength, more ships, more defenses than we actually have. Then, we will open communication with the Varrock, offering concessions and trade agreements disguised as temporary strategies. Finally, we will position our drones in unpredictable patterns, creating traps that will force them to retreat without a battle. It is not brute force, it is human ingenuity. Xylara's eyes shone with admiration. You truly understand Thix. This is not just strategy, it is foresight. Do it, Captain. The plan was set into motion. As the Varrock fleet entered orbit, Elias coordinated palace defenses. Drones scattered across the sky, projecting holographic images of additional ships. Sensors picked up the false signals, and the Varrock fleet hesitated. Elias opened communications, speaking calmly and confidently. We understand your concerns. Let us negotiate terms that benefit both sides without bloodshed. The Varrock commander's voice crackled over the communicator. Humans, how do you understand our tactics? So well? Elias smiled faintly. Observation, understanding, and creativity. Humans have a way of seeing possibilities others miss. Hours passed, tension building with every moment. The Varrock attempted to probe the defenses, only to be funneled into traps set by Elias's drones. Their ships faltered, systems overloaded, and confusion spread through their fleet. Finally, they agreed to parley, accepting the temporary agreements and trade adjustments Elias had proposed. The Varrock left without a single shot fired. The council erupted in astonishment. Alien generals who had doubted him now recognized the human edge, the ability to achieve victory through intelligence, flexibility, and understanding rather than sheer power. But Elias knew the victory was only temporary. Other factions would come, some more cunning, some more ruthless. He spent the next days preparing defenses, training Thixian officers in adaptive thinking, and strengthening alliances. Each interaction reinforced a truth he already knew. Humans thrived where predictability failed. During one strategy session, a young Thixian scholar approached him. Captain Rourke, she said hesitantly, there are whispers in the council. Some fear that your presence, your influence, will disrupt their authority. How do you respond? Elias leaned back, thoughtful. Humans are not here to dominate. We are here to remind others of what they have forgotten. Cooperation, creativity, and courage. Those who fear us do not understand that our strength lies not in weapons but in mind and heart. If they act wisely, they will follow. If they resist, they will learn, sometimes painfully, that underestimating humans is always a mistake. That evening, Xylara summoned him to a private chamber. Captain, she said, her tone serious, not all in the galaxy respect balance. Some will attempt to steal Thix. You must anticipate betrayal, sabotage, and attacks, and you must do so without revealing too much, for even one mistake could cost countless lives. Elias nodded. I understand. Humans survive not by hiding but by adapting. We find paths others cannot see. Thix is no different. It is not just knowledge. It is the way to survive. A sudden alert interrupted them. Sensors detected an unidentified ship approaching stealthily. Elias analyzed the readings. It was small, fast, and heavily armed. A strike team, likely sent to capture him or the artifact he carried. Without hesitation, he activated the palace defenses. Using patterns the aliens had never imagined, he lured the ship into a containment net created by drones. The intruders struggled, then surrendered. No Thixian ship was harmed. Xylara studied him, her expression a mix of awe and relief. Captain Rourke, your human edge is extraordinary. You anticipate, adapt, and act where others falter. You remind us why humans were once called mediators and saviors of the galaxy. Elias allowed himself a faint smile. It is what humans do. We survive, we adapt, and sometimes we surprise everyone. Over the next few days, Elias continued to strengthen Thixian Prime's defenses, train officers in adaptive strategy, and negotiate with nearby factions. The galaxy began to notice the human presence, not as a threat, but as a force for intelligence, foresight, and cooperation. Even allies who had doubted him now spoke of humans with respect. One general remarked quietly, "We feared humans, yet they are the only ones capable of seeing the whole picture." But Elias remained vigilant. He knew the galaxy had not forgotten humanity entirely. There were still those who feared and envied the human mind. He had won battles of wits and strategy, but larger challenges loomed on the horizon. One night, while reviewing star maps, he noticed a pattern. A coalition of systems, previously thought neutral, was quietly aligning against Thixian Prime. There, fleets were forming, communication lines tightening. They had observed his successes, and they would not tolerate a human guiding the galaxy. Elias shared his findings with Xylara. "Your Majesty, there is a coalition forming. They will not confront us openly yet. They are calculating. But they will act, and soon. We must prepare." The Queen nodded gravely. "Then you will need to demonstrate more than strategy, Captain. You will need to unite, inspire, and lead. Thix is not just knowledge, it is influence. And you, human, are becoming its living embodiment." Elias felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. One human mind, a small artifact, and the future of Thixian Prime, and perhaps the galaxy, rested on him. But he also felt a surge of determination. Humans had faced extinction, isolation, and disbelief before, yet here he was, standing against impossible odds, using intelligence, creativity, and courage to shape the course of civilizations. As the twin suns set over the crystal city, Elias looked out across the horizon. Red markers of potential threats flickered faintly in distant systems. The galaxy was not yet at peace, but one human mind had reminded it of what it had forgotten: ingenuity, adaptability, and the human edge. The crystal city of Thixian Prime glittered under the twin suns, but the beauty could not hide the tension in the air. Captain Elias Rourke stood on the palace balcony, observing the approaching fleet. This was no ordinary fleet. It was the coalition he had predicted. Several star systems, united by fear and ambition, had formed a massive armada aimed at capturing Thixian Prime and seizing the secrets of Thix. Elias clenched his fists around the small human artifact, the globe he had presented to Queen Xylara. It had guided him through tests, strategies, and negotiations. Now it would guide him through the greatest challenge of all. Xylara approached, her silver skin reflecting the sunlight. "Captain," she said calmly, "this is the culmination. If Thix is to survive, you must lead, not just in strategy but in spirit. The galaxy will watch your actions. The future of cooperation, balance, and peace rests on your shoulders." Elias nodded. "I understand, Your Majesty. But humans survive by acting, not by waiting. We will turn this threat into an opportunity." The council convened in the Grand Hall. Aliens of all ranks, generals and scholars alike, gathered to hear the plan. Many still doubted the human, but curiosity and necessity forced them to listen. Elias laid out the situation. The coalition fleet was vast and heavily armed. Brute force would not be enough. Instead, he proposed a combination of deception, diplomacy, and human ingenuity. "We will use their assumptions against them," he said. "We will create false signals, feigned weaknesses, and opportunities for negotiation. Then we will demonstrate that cooperation, guided by Thix, is more effective than aggression." Murmurs spread across the council. Some generals exchanged doubtful glances. One of them, a tall figure with metallic blue skin, finally asked, "And if they refuse negotiation?" Elias smiled faintly. "Then we use strategy that they cannot predict. Humans excel when rules are ignored, when patterns are unexpected. Thix allows us to anticipate their moves and counter them before they act." Victory does not always come from strength. Sometimes it comes from understanding. Preparations began immediately. Holographic decoys simulated massive fleets in orbit. False signatures suggested advanced weapon systems, and palace drones moved unpredictably to confuse sensors. Elias trained Thixian officers in improvisation, teaching them to think beyond rigid protocols and react like humans, quickly, creatively, and decisively. When the coalition fleet arrived, it was vast, a wall of metal and firepower stretching across space. Sensors tracked their movements, but Elias already knew how they would behave. Alien logic was predictable, rigid, and confined by rules. Human intuition thrived where predictability failed. The first move came swiftly. The coalition sent a strike, team to probe Thixian Prime's defenses. Using patterns they could not anticipate, Elias guided palace drones to intercept and contain the intruders. The strike team was captured without a single Thixian ship being damaged. The coalition commander demanded communication. Elias responded, calm and firm. "I am Captain Elias Rourke. Humans once guided civilizations not by domination, but by understanding. Thix is not a weapon. It is a system for cooperation. We invite you to negotiate." The commander's voice crackled over the communicator. "Humans, we have heard tales, but one human does not dictate terms to millions." Elias leaned forward. "One human can show the way, but many can follow it. Cooperation is stronger than aggression, and understanding, stronger than fear. Join us or continue down a path that leads only to destruction." Hours passed. Tension filled the council chambers and the skies above Thixian Prime. The coalition's advisors debated, unsure if they should risk further action. Then, Elias took a bold step. He proposed a demonstration. Drones and holographic displays simulated a coordinated galaxy-wide trade and defense network. Red markers of potential conflict transformed into green markers of cooperation. He invited coalition leaders to interact with the simulation, to see how Thix could work in real time. One by one, coalition representatives were drawn in. Their curiosity overcame pride. They saw solutions that did not require destruction. Trade disputes resolved, cultural tensions eased, resources shared fairly. The alien leaders began to realize that what humans offered was not power, but insight, a map of how civilizations could thrive together. Even the most stubborn generals began to acknowledge Elias's brilliance. "This is unlike anything we imagined," one admitted. "Perhaps humans were never extinct in influence. Perhaps we underestimated the mind over machines." But the coalition commander remained defiant. "Your simulations do not guarantee compliance. We still have fleets and we can still attack." Elias remained calm. "I understand your concern, but consider this. Attacking Thixian Prime, a planet defended by human strategy, drones, and foresight, is far riskier than cooperation. And even if you succeed, what will you gain? Chaos, fear, enemies everywhere. Thix is the better path. I can show you how to survive without war." The commander hesitated, unsure of the human's confidence. Then, slowly, he agreed to talks. One by one, the coalition representatives joined, their skepticism replaced by curiosity and hope. Days passed. Elias worked tirelessly, negotiating terms, sharing strategies, and demonstrating Thix in action. The galaxy, which had thought humans irrelevant, began to see them as essential. Aliens marveled at the human ability to combine logic, empathy, and creativity in ways that machines and traditional intelligence could never replicate. Even within Thixian Prime, the council began to change. Those who had doubted him now respected humans, not as warriors, but as thinkers, guides, and leaders. The galaxy's perception of humanity began to shift, all because one human had dared to act where others hesitated. Then came the final challenge. A rogue fleet, refusing diplomacy, attempted to breach the planet's defenses. Elias acted swiftly. Using the lessons of Thix, he combined holographic decoys, deceptive maneuvers, and precision strikes from palace drones. The fleet faltered, confused and divided. The rogue commander finally surrendered, realizing that underestimating humans was a fatal mistake. Queen Zelara observed everything from the palace balcony. "Captain Rourke," she said softly, "you have done what no alien alone could have achieved. You have united systems, prevented war, and demonstrated that humans are not forgotten, not extinct, but essential. Thix lives because of you." Elias looked at the small globe in his hands. It had guided him through tests, political intrigue, and battles of wits. Now it symbolized more than knowledge. It symbolized the human legacy. "I did not act alone," Elias said. "The Thixians, the Council, even the Coalition, they chose to see reason. But humans can remind others what is possible. That is our gift." The Queen smiled, her eyes reflecting stars. "Then you, Captain, are the last keeper of Thix. You will ensure its wisdom survives and guides the galaxy, even if humanity itself fades." Elias felt the weight of history pressing on him. One human mind, one artifact, had shifted the balance of civilizations. He knew that humanity's role in the galaxy was not just in fleets or weapons, but in thought, creativity, and courage. Even if humans were few, even if they were forgotten by many, they could still influence the stars. He spent the following weeks establishing records, training future leaders, and encoding the Thix protocols in a format safe for all civilizations. He created guides, simulations, and artifacts, reminders of the human edge, so that even if humans returned to obscurity, the galaxy would remember their wisdom. Finally, the day came when Elias prepared to depart. The city glowed under the twin suns, the fleets of coalition systems now allied peacefully, and the council stood united in respect and gratitude. Zelara approached, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Captain, the galaxy owes you a debt. You have restored not just knowledge, but trust, hope, and balance. The legacy of Thix is safe because of one human who believed in what was possible." Elias smiled. "It is not just one human. It is all humans, our curiosity, courage, and ingenuity. We survive, we adapt, and we inspire. That is the true legacy." As the Odyssey lifted off from Thixian Prime, Elias looked back at the glittering city below. He knew the galaxy had changed. Aliens who had doubted him now saw humans as essential. Red dots of conflict had become green dots of cooperation. And somewhere deep in space, civilizations whispered of the human who reminded the stars of forgotten wisdom. For Elias, the mission was complete. But the story of humanity had only just begun. One human mind had reminded the galaxy of what it had forgotten, that ingenuity, courage, and heart could shape the stars. And perhaps one day humans would return to their rightful place among them, not as conquerors, but as guides, visionaries, and keepers of balance. The twin suns set over Thixian Prime. The crystal towers shimmered, fleets aligned peacefully, and the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, remembered humanity. Captain Elias Rourke held the globe one last time, smiling faintly. He had done what many thought impossible. One human had reminded the galaxy that humans were special, not because of strength, but because of mind, courage, and heart.